to get serious. We took a nap last week, but we are going to dig in today. This is a Friday live edition of Anytime with Ken and Alden. I'm Alden, that's Ken.
Hello, my name is Ken. I live in Burbank. I've got an adorable little house and a burgeoning comedy career. I love
burgeoning, or is it
blossoming?
Is it sunset? Is it twilight?
Twilight
on the dreams?
No, certainly not. It might be twilight on a different comedy act, but certainly not on Ken Napsok. And we'll
Twilight of the Apprentices. Hey, everybody. We're back. Or we were here last week.
Yeah, we've
it
been
feels
on.
like a lifetime, so I thought I missed a week. But no, I was here last week.
100%. I mean, it's no secret. It's in the social media posts. You see it here. Tenacious D-mocracy, a title which I'm very proud of, but might have given Ken heart palpitations because of how much he hates puns.
I do hate puns. I do hate wordplay. But, it doesn't mean they're not good ones. Doesn't mean you don't. Sometimes my disgust is, all right, that's good.
Yeah.
It's
like a begrudging golf clap for it. But, yeah, so with that, I mean, we'll get to them. That's going to be more toward the middle of the very loose rundown that we have. But
yeah, you got one today. Yeah.
I saw a movie on this past Friday after our show. Went to the movies. And that film, which was Long Legs, starring Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage, fantastic movie. That feels like 2 months ago. Because, of course, the next day, something that hasn't happened in 30-ish years happened. Whether that's, attempts/successes, maybe excluding popes. There might have been a pope after Reagan. But
do you count a shoe at W's head?
You know what? Yes, I do. I'm going to count the shoe because that was a fun moment in our history. That was, and again, that's a childhood memory for me. So
is that child? That's an adult one, but I voted for him at the time, so it's colored through that lens. But I still think that's one of the cool reactions.
Yeah, I mean, like, credit to him. Like, that's the thing. Like, W, who's probably one of the greatest recipients of the Overton window shift over the last 8 years.
yes.
That nobody has benefited more from like being a kooky old just glup shitto of America than that guy. And like the fact that he you can look back at those clips like the now watch this drive, like things like that, like, oh no, is he looking cooler in comparison? It's awful. I hate it.
But anyways, 81 is the first March 30th, 1981 is the first big news story I remember experiencing, the assassination attempt of Reagan.
81. Wow.
81, yeah.
81, same year as Raiders, I think. So big year all around for
That was the only two things I remember. No, actually, I don't remember. I don't remember Raiders. Temple was my first indie.
Here we go. The looking at the rundown here. Remind me from Coop. Remind me to tell Ken some of my favorite puns. Jared's here. The shoe throw is an all-time hilarious moment in American history. Yeah, as far as funny things.
Bizarre.
Here are two comments from some great people. Robert Meadows, who's immediately coming in. I'm far from a Trump fan, can't stand the guy, but wishing death on another human being is just disturbing. Good on Jack for canceling this tour. We're going to get to Tenacious D. I contrast this with, to be totally honest, Michael McCarsel's comment. I have nothing nice to say. My sympathies run out, and I don't condone anything that happened, but I can't muster sympathy for those who demonize my fiance and I. Maybe not a full contrast, but both coming at it from a place of reality, which is going to be a theme here. Not to get too dark, like 4 minutes and 40 seconds into the show, but he's a harsh reality talk today.
Get dark, man. Get dark.
I'm gonna brood because I'm good and the Jedi are bad. Hello, Noah's here. Greetings from the land of always winter. Now, what's funny is that I know where you're from. Ken might not know. Noah is one of our good friends. He was there with us in London and hung out with us a lot in the bars and everything. Ken might not remember because he was busy drinking and having a good time and not learning names, I'm sure, which is not your job.
It takes me a little bit to learn names, but I also just assume everyone doesn't know my name, and I mean that in a good way. I'll remind you. Norway?
Greenland.
Norway, where Joseph is right now. Okay.
Iceland. Yeah, no, Norway. He is proof that Norwegians are real, because I don't think people ever actually meet Norwegians. I think they're more conceptual. But then when I met Noah, I knew, okay, this is a real thing.
One of my friends from New York married a Norwegian woman and moved to Oslo, where he is now. And he's telling me to get on over. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I've met a Norwegian in person.
Are there more openings for marrying women in Oslo?
It's tough.
Yeah, probably a long line.
Yeah,
it's probably a long line.
Yeah, the idea of like I told you off air privately to rehash a little bit, like other countries don't make it as easy to get in.
No, they don't. I remember a lot of my post high school, that first year was me figuring out my like immigration plan for Canada, and turns out not that easy. You have to bring in an essential skill or something. Losers. You have to bring some sort of essential skill, or like public service, doctors, teachers, things like that. Yeah. They don't want at the time aspiring like filmmakers / future broadcasters. They got that. They're good.
We have enough of those. Get out, turn around.
Yeah, we've got Vancouver. We're making every show, so we're fine. Thank you. Scotty's here, David McKay's here, Lauren Romo's here, Shroomi's here, JMB's here. Wow, you're all rolling in. It's almost like people like a spicy topic. Ray Clausen's here. Thanks for joining us, everyone. So
hit me.
Let's set the stage here, because you and I talked Friday. We text most days of the week anyway. And then Saturday rolled around. I was sitting exactly where I am now. I think I was halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way through my rewatch of Logan, because I'm gearing up for Hugh Jackman's next Wolverine film, and probably the final one, even though we thought we already crossed that bridge. And I'm watching Logan, and I had to pause to take my beloved dog son Mando out so he could use the facilities in the yard. And then all of a sudden I see, Donald Trump, dodges. I think at first it was like dodges shots from crowd, or so shots fired at rally. And I thought, well, on Elon Musk's X, you got to do double verification on all these things. And so I'm like, is this like, he was just moving weird and like someone's being funny? I looked into it, and then I was like, oh my God. Texted some friends, and then ran out to where my brother-in-law and my stepfather were grilling together. And I just blurted out like, Donald Trump's just been shot at, or possibly shot, because that was the other thing too. It was the development from he dodged / they missed to no, he got grazed to was it a graze, or was it the teleprompter glass, or was it the podium? So where were you? What were you up to? And how does this happen in your day?
I love this because we're a week out. We're already asking where were you when, and that's why I love history. I love history that unfolds. That's why we have the stories where I'm like, I remember Sam Donaldson on the news desk while the anchor's getting upset. If we got to get this right, people, when Reagan's shot. I remember all that stuff. I was here in this very seat. I was going to go live at 4 on my show, The Blathering. It happened about 40 minutes before, but I didn't see it till about 20 minutes before. And same thing. I wish I didn't spend any time on X, but it's still a spot to kind of plug into the world and see what's going on, even though, like you said, you have to be wary of what you're seeing. And so same thing. I was wary of what I saw. Hashtags Trump shot. Then I saw a thing, saw his bloody face, and you're like, oh, something happened. And then it was like, oh, he fell. Oh, he fell. And then the clip comes out that, that's gunshots, been around guns being fired, gun, got it. And we'll talk later. I think there's, of all the conspiracies, the one to actually kind of ask is what actually hit him. But you're watching it, right? I don't even think he in that moment was like glass, like just like, oh crap. So went live and tried to process it as best I could because it is history. It is something that's 200 years from now, if we're around, probably won't be. It'll be discussed. You know what I mean?
Jury's out.
This is a historic event. Yeah, this is a historic event.
100%. If Nikki shows up in the comments, I'll ask him to give the exact quote. But Nikki Kumar from Casually Talk, one of our good friends and collaborators, he in his military history masters took a Roman Empire course, or a few of them, and his professor that would teach about the Roman Empire was like, I want you to understand that based on these standards, the American experiment hasn't even really reached toddler level. There's still no way to tell if this is going to be a thing.
Well, I always to get oddly biblical fast, being raised in the church, studying end times prophecy and that kind of stuff was one of my favorite things for my dad to study.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't about whether you believe it or not, but every time I was told, in the Book of Revelation, America isn't present. There's no signs that America survives to this point.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to always be like, "Oh, that's silly. We got McDonald's." And now I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that's one thing that's true.
Maybe you'll be a Walton Goggins style ghoul walking to the last McDonald's in about 50 years. But yeah. So you were broadcasting shortly thereafter. Did you change your plans? Do you feel rattled? No. Are you like violence took place, therefore I feel uneasy or unsafe?
No. I have a little bit of a newscastery side. I maybe in another life would have been on the news, and I think it's important. I want to talk about it because it's exactly what we're talking about. Again, we have a person at the center of this that I think most of us here in our chat probably don't like, but it's still something that will have rippling effects and everything, and its history breaking out. And no, I love it. I love it in the sense of I love talking about it, trying to process it, live it, report on it, see what's going on. I'm glued. One of my I could give you all the beat by beat minute almost of the North Hollywood shooting from 1996, which is 44 minutes of absolute hell that I ended up working with the SWAT officers, one specific SWAT officer that actually shot one of the guys. So I just knew all about that. I just knew all about that. I'm obsessed with that kind of stuff. You have talked. I say this with care and caution. I get oddly obsessed with 9/11. I get oddly obsessed with the Challenger explosion, and there's massive death and tragedy involved in these things. But it's something about the history unfolding in front of me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that you're not alone in that. I mean, from really small, more intimate, like singular case people, like that become like a murderino culture, but then also like, why did the world stop to watch a whole television show about Chernobyl and like things like that? Because like, how did we get to this devastating level? I think is really interesting to people, and it is to me too. I think when I was finishing up my broadcasting program, the first show that I ended up working on, we were aware of their broadcast about the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting because they were a 4-hour morning show and they ended up going like 7 hours that day. And I remember that being brought up in class and being like, wow, that's a classy thing to do, to just like give the community a place to vent. And they just took phones for an extra 3 hours. And then I ended up working there and talking to them about it. But people checking in before we start to talk about some of the fallout. I found out from Alden and then started watching the footage over and over with a bunch of coworkers. Yeah, I mean, like it was a lot of replay happening in my living room as well. Coop, within 48 hours, my brakes went out, my coffee maker died, and Donald got shot at. I mean, they say what tragedy comes in threes, usually for celebrity death, but I'm gonna rank that coffee maker, Donald breaks. Coffee maker definitely the worst tragedy of that.
Yeah, you asked me if I was going to change my plans on my Saturday show I was doing. Yeah, I had to, because I was going to do Comic-Con memories and say goodbye to the nerd era, and then also say my regards of Richard Simmons. That was the story of the day, and all of a sudden, nope, poor Richard.
I mean, Dr. Ruth, Richard Simmons, and then Shannon Doherty after Trump. And somebody made the point, they were like, Donald surviving prevented us from getting a full 93 Letterman lineup of death. Where it's like you think about this exact specific group of people. Sean says I was camping at the time, came out of the woods to about 100 messages. That was a thing too. I had Charlie Ashby over in the UK FaceTimed me because, of course, it's global news. And they get to watch this more in a spectator because they settled their business. They're good for a little bit.
It's good. Okay.
England and France right now are kind of just like, yeesh. Like, all right,
we had our week.
Yeah, let's just watch. Starting with this, I'm curious about your perspective on it in terms of like, your interest in the investigative side. Did you spend the rest of your day like doing readings? Did you get frustrated at all with like this was a ploy to build sympathy, which like I feel like there are odd things, and you can give me insight into this as a public safety professional with a long history of that. These seem to be some of the slower Secret Service professionals that I've seen, or maybe the distance was a little bit wide. Like that was weird. There are weird things, but then once we found out that there was death, then I was like, okay, we got to stop this. Like we got to.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree that, and there's absolutely some things to look at. I you know, my overall theory, you know, on conspiracy theories is that they're used to distract yourself from the harsh truth, and that doesn't mean some things. I think there's a difference between things that are hidden that come to light and conspiracy theories, right? There's a lot of things, a lot of programs, a lot of government things where you look at it and you go, that can't be real. I've told you off air. I just did a big research in 20-page script for Operation Gladio, which was post-World War II, and it was a 100% real U.S.-sponsored, Vatican-paid-for, ex-Nazi run stay-behind army in Italy to fight communism. That's real. That staged decades of fake false flag attacks, and it's real, right? And so it's like, is that a conspiracy theory or is it just something hidden? So I do entertain them. I think it's important to go, all right, yeah, what happened? But I also think sometimes we can go so far with it, and we know the cases, right? And I like to think we all have a case-by-case reasoned approach to life that's not always real. Yeah, there's some things that I want to make. I've done executive protection for Minnie Driver, Pink, Paris Hilton, and accidentally Britney Spears. Like that.
That's my Mount Rushmore. Those are my presidents.
And Katie Hobbs and Suri Cruz when Suri was like 2, hiding them from paparazzi. So like that's all my experiences. I don't want anyone to think I'm an expert on this kind of stuff. But you know, you've been around these folks. I used to work for and with SWAT members and ex LAPD Metro Division officers, which is where the SWAT team comes out of. Yeah, there's some stuff, but I think the conspiracy, and I'll end my rant here, Alden. Is this a rant? It's hiding the fact that the Republican rhetoric has stoked some of this violence for decades, if not, you know, we just want to say concentrate in the last few years, maybe if you want to be fair, last few years, maybe decades is not an appropriate thing, but I do think you can trace it. They've stoked it to where someone might, a 20-year-old person with some thoughts would do this. I think law enforcement can be complacent. I think they can be bored. I think they can also be ineffective. And that's not attacking even any of the agencies. That's just part of the reality. If you do these things time and time again, you're supposed to be vigilant, but sometimes things happen and you're not quite ready, or you're not quite qualified for it, or you're not quite sure what's happening. Like, and I'm not saying that to give them grace or leeway. I'm just saying that's a reality too. Complacency is real. These are men and women who are waiting for their shift to end sometimes. You know, the idea of a 20-year-old person with maybe some mental health issues having access to his father's gun is also part of this as well. And that's to me the entire situation. I don't now, in my mind, don't believe he was actually hit by an AR-15 round. It does definitely feel like glass, and definitely feels like maybe you should have had that maxi pad on your ear while you were golfing the next day. But that's separate to me from the incident. But I think it does demand, as it is getting, a thorough investigation of what the hell happened.
The convenient, on-off gauze pad, which has become now a symbol from the same people that said masks make you a sheep, have now adopted wearing the pads over their ears as a power thing. And also, you know, of course, there are things that, for our purposes and for the people that watch this show and listen to, you know, we've got like a few hundred really solid, like always listen to the episode. Like every time we get to the next week, you see the views. Like there's a few hundred of you that I'm pretty sure would agree with the statement. You know, there's clownery afoot. Like, of course, the NRA.
Clownery afoot.
Like, of course, the NRA. Afoot. Like, kids get shot in school. The NRA is always the first to tweet about their rights. Then this happens, silence. Like, of course, we know that there are things like that. The hypocrisy, the fact that, like with every violent incident involving guns in America, it is a sad reality that people in marginalized communities, be they people of color, queer people, like just anybody that could be victimized, is immediately like, oh, please don't be from my community, and add to these. Like, that's a reality. So lo and behold, young, angry, registered Republican does this. And of course, that is not a part of their rhetoric at all. It immediately becomes, well, the left did this because they've been calling him Hitler for 8 years. And it's like,
right.
All right, like great mental gymnastics. Like we understand this. We understand what they're doing. We understand how this works. It's like, but when you look to a lot of great reporting that's happening right now, from people like trying to speak a little bit of truth to that point, or refute it with some truth, is that like nobody's calling him. Nobody has ever referred to him as Hitler or Orange Hitler or the fascist, like whatever, with no reason. Like if you've quoted Mein Kampf even accidentally, then that's a problem. Like
you found yourself synced up just based on what's in your heart.
Yeah, to that book. I know that Grace watched Succession. I don't know if you did. You listened to Succession.
I listened to Succession. Yeah.
There's a line where like a really like alt-righty employee of their company has been accused of some of this stuff, and he's the manager's like, so have you ever read Mein Kampf? And he's like, a couple times. And he's like, oh, a couple of times. Were there Easter eggs that you didn't get the first time? Like, so yeah, I mean, like if you do that, if you're referring to people as very fine people that we all know famously, if you are stoking neo-Nazi groups and Proud Boys and things to do the insurrection, if you are endorsed by David Duke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to relitigate these last 8 years. It's like, you can't be surprised that gets said, but then like, don't try to act like none of those things that were said by this person didn't also, like you said, stoke violence. Historically, the party has stoked violence, but now especially, and it's not always partisan either. Sometimes it's within the party. Like ask Mike Pence about stoking violence and everything. Like it's not just blue, red, DR. It's a lot of it is just this specific pipeline of Tea Party to MAGA cult. That transformation has become a violent element, and then they're surprised when they blow up in their faces. Of course, Leopard Eats Faces party is a thing that gets said a lot and has sort of become the culture around that now. And yeah, like as a 28-year-old person with friends of all colors, creeds, orientations, histories, I didn't feel bad, and I would say pretty honestly right now I don't. And that's a cultural divide, it's a generational divide, it's a thing that has become frustrating. It was already frustrating when he got COVID in 2020, because then immediately it's like we were facing a 50-50 election in 2020, and it's arguably worse now, and we'll get to that too. And he gets COVID, and the Dems pulled all their ads. Let's pull everything out of respect. And it's like, there's only so many times that you can show this level of respect for somebody that and not hypothetically would cheer if this happened, has cheered when this has happened. Paul Pelosi gets bashed in the head with a hammer, and they're joking. Or even more indirect, like McCain. Like McCain and the storied history of POWs. And they laughed at that too. And so it's like, but you want to send tweets and sympathies and everything. And this is without me going into the rant about what they haven't done for Palestine and et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, how, so like Bin Laden has a son who seems normal. Like, did you tweet him sympathies? Like, this is what I don't understand about why we feel like we need to high road evil, because like, it's like we've talked off air, and we're not going to get into Star Wars, so nobody asked. But we talked off air about like how things get too 1-to-1, and it's almost like people have taken morality play logic into the real world, where they're like, well, Indiana Jones, he did punch them, and you should never punch them, and that has infected now even the discourse, where it's like, yeah, I'm not saying be on there and like risking your job and everything by saying like he should have been killed, but you like, I don't understand why. I mean, I do, but I wish we lived in a world where the Democrats would have been like, stoking violence is bad and it has consequences, and that's all you need to say.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair question for me. I understand where you're coming from, because I think the rules, the game, everything has changed over the last few years, say 20 years with social media. And it's a gloves off kind of mentality. I think there's still a expected level of decorum that should be in place, but maybe that's a little old school. And what I mean is, what you just said is a great point. Like I think I saw some examples, someone like Adam Kinzinger, politely saying you reap what you sowed type of thing. I think there's a way to do it, and I feel what your frustration is. I'm trying to say to you. I still think there should be there's just a natural gut reaction to high road it to a point, but that's also, again, they don't respect it. Like the only reason I can offer, now this isn't, I'm not trying to soothe you, answer or understand it myself.
No, yeah.
It's the old Facebook check. I deleted probably 5 old friends on Saturday into Sunday. Intentionally went to Facebook to look. I'll admit, I went to go see what were these folks saying, and it was all they're rooting for his death. How dare they? They put the picture of the flag and the hand up in the bloody year, and so I'm like, I don't want to give them that momentary victory in the opening hours. That might be it. That might be it. I'm not saying all of them that's even right, because again, the rules have changed. I got my friend, I've told him before, my friend Jeff May. He's a Golden Spikes amateur boxer. He could punch all these guys out, so he knows he gets away with it. He can go straight at it in a way that I can't. I fought, but I can't knock anyone out with these thin wrists. And my friends, all the friends on the other side, have that kind of mentality. You can't knock me out, so therefore I'm going to come at you with how dare you root for this man's death. And that's the only reason I take the high road. But I really like your point of there's a way to expand what you're saying. Sorry this happened. Here's some stats to maybe show you what. You know what I mean? And I'm open to that. Yeah.
There's a way, and this is a much larger point, but like it comes down a lot to like the establishment left and the Dems as a party itself, like being really bad at gamesmanship, which is like that's on every level. But like there is a way to same with when he had COVID. It was like immediate, like let's pull all the ads, let's risk our election and our reach in the name of extending this olive branch that will never be returned. Why instead did they not say, and this is why we've always supported Dr. Fauci, and this is why we've done this, and blah, 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 get well soon, Dom. Right. Like, there's like they stoked that fire too until Fauci had to get extra protection for his life. And now here we are 4 years later, and we've had lots different, but a lot is exactly the same. And it's like, this happens by a member of his party, and and they pulled ads again. When they're saying democracy's on the line, they pull ads again. And they immediately start with the niceties.
Are they back up?
I think
dumb
they're
question.
back.
Yeah, I just was.
I think it took like 48
I really do feel I in an episode where you and I might have different views on some of the big issues. I really hear you and understand that, because what I hear you is not saying get online and mock the death, call for it, be an asshole.
Yeah.
But still push still push what's going on. Speak the truth about it. Yeah. And 20 years ago, where my mind still is, by the way, you were waiting to the USA Today edition the next morning.
It was a nice place 20 years ago. 20 years ago was great.
But
20 years ago at this time,
I want to, I think it's important to look at it where the high road doesn't mean not address it. It means maybe find a way to do it that is now. Now, again, I offer up the flip side that we're all aware of. I'm not the only one who has friends, former friends there, but it's like there's nothing that could knock them off their train of thought. There's nothing.
It's not gonna happen.
And I just, so sometimes, it's complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying, and also it's like, again, I brought up different things. I brought up the belief that some people have on the left that if you punch a Nazi, you're just as bad, or like the second you resort to violence, you're just as bad. And it's like, okay, well, like, there are people that that my mother knows that have advocated, against this. And it's like, but they are also like, one of them is also a member of like the DAR. And it's like, okay, well, like, what do you think the American Revolution was? It was not a conversation. And like, there are things like that. And it's like, nobody that I know, especially like in my age bracket, is like pro-war. But it's also like the example I used was, let's say Donald Trump existed and he wasn't a celebrity television host / politician, and that he lived up the street, and you knew that he had lost a civil case for rape, and you knew that he said all these things about minorities, and you knew that he mocked the disabled and everything. And then suddenly somebody in the neighborhood went and got him. You would probably be like, wow, they removed that dangerous predator from my street. But because he is in the position he's in, we act as if the office like imbues him with like a sense of like, thou cannot speak of ill of the king. And it's like, yeah, I know the Supreme Court thinks that, but but we do not all have to think that. There are malignant forces in the world that do have to be like looked at a different standard, which I think is sort of the starting place for the rest of the topics too, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I want to really, I really understand and appreciate. I don't have the full answer, other than every statement that came out in the aftermath from a lot of politicians made sense to me, and unsurprisingly, of course, they're going to say that. There's also a little bit of an angle. I mean, this almost half joking of, anytime someone, I always say, anytime someone's like, why does that escalator have a warning on it? Well, because someone sued. And so sometimes I'm like, you just have to go, hey, I don't believe in political violence, so that you are 100% on the record that anything after this, you didn't stoke. And that can be silly. That can be down to the nuts and bolts. But
and again, that also opens up, as we both know, we don't have 5 hours to do a show today, but that opens up the, okay, you say you don't, but like, let's be real. Like, we did just see what happened on campuses all across the country. We do see what's happening right now. And historically, we've always seen all of these things. You know, what you mean is there's an election coming up and you don't want to be labeled the radical left commies who kill people.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
Because
but we can't have that on this conversation.
Yeah. The normies are going to take that to the election booth. You know, the ones who don't follow. Yeah. I heard the Democrats are rooting for his death. Yeah.
Looking at the comments here, we got some... Robert Meadows, didn't he also compliment Hannibal Lecter? Yes, because he thinks he's real. And I wish that was me like joking about him. What is? Dumb.
But okay. What is it? Does I know he said it like 5 times in 5 different speeches.
Yeah.
What's the context there? I have to admit to not following along that one.
Maybe Jared, who like pays attention to the grift more and like the science of the grift, can clarify. But like, I believe he's bringing it up in the context of like him being an unhinged killer. Like, I think he's trying to use a criminal example. But yeah, like he'll be like, remember Hannibal Lecter, and like Anthony Hopkins they finally asked him about it. And he was unaware. Then they explained it to him and he was like, oh, that's terrible. So
that's terrible.
Eli from In a Galaxy. Cannibals are entering this country like Hannibal Lecter. That's what it is. But like keeps referring to him as a historical figure.
Okay.
So
thank you, Eli. That makes a ton of sense.
The late great was the latest one. Yeah, the late great. Charlie says, "Excuse me, where are your ear bandages? I'm gonna ban you from this channel, Charlie." Yeah, there are lots of things to talk about here. So Saturday happens. We're talking. I'm sure your phone was blowing up. I'm sure you were. So now we're gonna do some moving. We're gonna weave the topics.
We're gonna weave.
And if anybody has questions or anything, or comments or concerns or anything, feel free anytime to throw them in. It's not going to be a set Q&A at the end. Anytime is good. Sunday rolls around. Exactly. And now I guess it was already Sunday where this particular comedy musical act was. I feel like it's like we're looking at this world event and we're literally going to spin the globe. Meanwhile, in Sydney, Australia, Tenacious D.
Around the world we go. News of the world.
It's when I talked to you about like the show topic and everything, and we knew we were going to go over this stuff, I think I worded it as because somehow Tenacious D became supporting characters in this story.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This is just a weird world.
It's such a mad lib. Now, my relationship with Tenacious D is thus. I've always loved Jack Black. School of Rock is one of my favorite films. Yeah. I think he's great in a lot of things. I think his talent is immense. His backstory is fascinating, that his mom gave birth to him while saving one of the space shuttles because she was working at NASA. Like I've always loved him. I don't know as much about Kyle, only really within the context of that. My mom let me rent Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny from Blockbuster in 06 because it had Jack Black on it and she recognized it from School of Rock. And here we are now. They've been on off for about 30 years at this point. Going back to, I think, HBO, right, had their television series.
So, yeah, it's been 30 plus years for sure.
Yeah, 30 plus. And they are celebrating Kyle's birthday on stage.
64, yeah.
64 years young. And it's the, Kyle, what do you wish for? And he says, I believe the exact quote was, don't miss Trump next time. Crowd laughs. We should note, Jack laughs. Was it uncomfortable laughter? Only Jack Black knows. And then it was like, it went like, I wouldn't even say viral. People were just like, oh, Tenacious D making a funny dark joke about timely stuff. I had not, I swear on my honor, seen a single call for any apologies or any problems. There was no like their labels getting mad or anything. Not until a couple days later, we get into the week, and then all of a sudden it was a storm of like Jack's statement, Kyle's statement, Kyle's representation drops him, all creative plans on hold. So not just the tour. It's on their Instagrams if anyone wants to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it just became this divide, and full disclosure, Ken and I don't agree. So and we haven't really talked about it outside of a few texts. So I'm gonna throw to you, and as a comedian and broadcaster, which is the other thing, is that you're also a comic, and I don't know if you ever met either of these guys, but you know the history and you know people that know them, or at least around town. So it's I
know people that know them. Yeah. I've never.
How does this land, and what is the, I guess, business perspective that you have?
Yeah, you and I have only talked. I just kind of said I want to let you know I'm more on the side of Jack Black than Kyle, just so you know going into this. But I want to be clear, like Jack Black doesn't need my defense. He'll be all right.
Yeah, Jack, you're still invited on this show, by the way.
And two, he's a favorite of mine. High Fidelity is a life-changing movie for me, and that's what put him on the national scene, even though he had been in several things before, including Mars Attacks, one of my favorites. Here's that question that you and I have always talked about here of like, what are we talking about? There's a lot of layers to it. I'll go time by a little beat by beat. Me, the incident, I heard of it whenever it happened. Right, again, Australian time. Then there's the Australian politician who calls for their deportation, who puts out a statement, who we should note ends a statement that something along the lines of this is an insult to the 45th and eventual 47th president of the United States. So I think we know what side he leans
this
with.
Is a right-winger from the Aussie side. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But this is also Australia. This is in America. This is a little, views on gun violence there are thankfully different. The country handles it in a different way than us, and calls for that kind of violence might be viewed differently. I just put that out there for some. That's how I saw it. That's how I went. But I too didn't react too much there, because if I want to pull it apart and talk about the joke, that joke was texted to me 20 times Saturday.
I think both of us, every person that we know.
Every person I know. Generally speaking, I can name about 5 who didn't. Sent me that, or a version of that.
Yeah.
I was on a show Friday night, so didn't see it. I was on a show Sunday night. But I wasn't on a show Saturday night, but my buddy Mark was, and we were texting about it, and he just had this big, like, oof. A lot of comics taking big shots on stage tonight with that kind of stuff. It's just, and I don't even call it gallows humor. It's just so I the joke of the grand pantheon, the grand scale of offensive humor, I would call that pretty low.
In terms of like the wording and the content and like, the wording. I think it was wording. Like he wasn't graphic. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do have a question. Just further table setting. I'm glad you brought up Ellis's perspective from seeing other performers that night. When this happens, is it fair to say that it becomes I don't want to say fodder. Is it like, does the comedian community sort of see up these things as like training opportunities?
They're like training. No, they're frothing at the mouth to get on stage to say it.
Yeah. So it's like everybody immediately is like, what is my version? Like we also, we're nerds. So it's like, we saw like they sent the original trilogy Stormtroopers to get them. Like like everybody's got their thing.
And they're all hack fucking jokes. They're all back. If anything, Kyle Gass is guilty of a horribly hack joke, of a street joke. There's if anything, I'm like, come on, do more than that. I did one on Sunday night. There was more about, and I was going to clip it out and share it because I need to get more clips out there. I didn't because I'm lazy. But it was like more along the lines of, this is. The news cycle is going to be crazy. We're going to forget about this in a week. I'm still talking about the Reagan assassination. And in a week, we're going to be asking, hey, did you see Hawk Tua's reality show? And got a big laugh. Then I went into some Hawk Tua a bit. And then Erica Rhodes posted a way better version of that. And so she's way more talented than I. So even I, you want to, it's weird to not acknowledge it, right? And I heard one of the comics was telling me, she was like, I was scheduled here. It was Flappers of Burbank the night of the election that Trump won 2016. She goes, no comic showed up. we canceled the shows. So that's one of the only times I've seen it. But other than that, comics are horrible people. We just want to get up on stage and we just want to comment on things, and we want to make people laugh. And there's a lot of comics that feel that it's their duty to offend. And I say offend is not the goal of comedy. So anyways, that's the joke itself.
Yeah.
But then this happens, and here's what I'll say. I think there's a social media lumping on Jack Black. It's not a good look. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Alden, it's a good look for Jack. But I've just seen a lot of those things where I'm like, you don't know the whole story. And you touch on it, 30+ year friendship. He threw away. They have not spoken for years before. They have fallen out for years.
Chunks.
Different chunks of time. I don't know Kyle. I know some people that do. There's not some people not surprised by this. And my thing is, I have left shows. I have altered friendships because of what people have said consistently on shows that have put me, what I felt, is in a bit of a lurch. And it goes beyond just what's said on the show. It's just like, after a while, you keep doing this to me with no care or concern. And there's no other documented instance where they fought over what something said on stage. And everyone's going to point to some of their songs, the Trumps and the KKK member. We get it. A lot of their songs.
Yeah, I guess like a more recent film they have has the White House and like some
Tenacious D's humor has always been based on how far and loud can we push this. Yeah. And I've always thought they're entertaining, to be clear. Again, I am a Jack Black fan. I don't know if I'd hang out with Jack. After a while, I'd be like, shut the hell up. Kyle, too. Kyle's quick to jump into his underwear, and God bless him. So all I'm saying is, I'm just like, pump the brakes a little bit. And then the people who are like, oh, he ditched his friend for his career. Yeah, because Kyle ditched him for the moment. And that he put him in a situation where you could lose some things. So I look at him first, and has this been done before, even off stage? Has this happened before where yes, things change? And I'm definitely going to hand you the mic here soon, buddy.
No, please.
But things change where I have seen people go from the one-room studio apartment to 30 Rock, and in 24 hours, their life changed to a level in which they had to change any method of how to contact them, any method of how to be found in 24 hours. I have seen a very successful, moderately successful, but talented, respected voice actor who likes D&D become the biggest GM in the world. And I've watched the walls need to be built because a lot of people inside those walls put him in a very bad position that he had given trust to. And I'm not saying that's Kyle Gass. I'm just saying I saw the situation and went, yes, Jack Black is more successful, meaning there's more to lose. And if you're kind of ne'er-do-well friend that's not succeeded much on his own keeps putting you in a situation, that was the line of upon further reflection that made me think, first of all, maybe they're not done. They're just tour, future. We're going to, and I have to own this, Alden. It is a bias I have to previous situations. I get people asking, why, hey, is that podcast coming back? No, because when I was on it, I found myself having to sit there and nod uncomfortably while some dumb things were said.
Yeah. Are you ever going to guest here? Are you ever going to do this?
Ever going to guest on this show? Ever going
to? Yeah. Okay. So that provides a lot of clarity, I think, because again, like I threw it to you with the lens of business. You're opening up about your history. I think that but like morality wise, you're not thinking like you agree that it's also the bad look. So I like that you covered both.
It is a bad look. Yeah, it's not a win.
It's like it's not what you would have done if you were Jack. Maybe an apology, sure. But like canceling the tour and creative is like it just feels like I texted you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And and you were like, I'm gonna take more Jack's side, and I was like, great, because I'm not. And that was I immediately went to James Gunn, who in 2018 gets fired, not by Kevin Feige, but by Alan Horn, who was heading up Walt Disney Motion Pictures, for tweets that not only were old, but had already been apologized for before he did his first Guardians film. So the apologies on the record. It comes up not because of any good faith way, it comes up because a right-wing grifter wanted to go after James because James was open about disliking Donald Trump.
Right.
And then Alan Horn capitulates to this uproar, fires him. Everybody agrees it's a stupid decision, including Kevin, and they all sort of just hold the line. Let's wait, and then we rehire him. Iger, everybody, Chapek, all thought Alan was being stupid.
The
So,
thumb.
Yeah, it reminded me of this, and because it was like, we ask on this show a lot, what are we actually talking about? And so when it comes to Jack, we know where Jack stands politically because he was one of the most recent celebrity Biden endorsements. We understand that he is not himself pearl clutching over this. But when you pull a move that is more than an apology, everybody would have been like, okay, whatever, Jack is trying to keep peace, whatever. But it was the cancellation of everything that was like, okay, who are you concerned about here? And you like, what are you capitulating to is my whole thing. Like, you're giving credence to people that are pearl clutching about something that is centered on a fascist. We understand this logically, that this is a fascist. It was not just a normal guy. 2, as you said, is just rare stakes for every single person in the world of comedy. And then 3C, I don't remember if I was doing letters or numbers, is Tenacious D. It's like I was telling my mother about this and catching her up. Like, I was like, this is the same act that in the film You Let Me Rent, it ends with a final battle against Satan / Lucifer for Kyle's sexual enslavement, where they say that he is going to be assaulted and will have to gargle demon gel. They pissed a lot of religious people off with that.
Yeah.
Did they pull the film? Did they cancel Tenacious D? Did they remove copies of it? It's still available on streaming? Like, I don't understand why this was the thing. And that's when we start to get into I don't agree with like Jack Black sucks now, but I do think there is a lot of like, okay, you're watching the bag, which like watch the bag, like you were touching on, like totally. But like, is it worth being inconsistent? Like that's, what we talked about Charlie here in the comments. Like what it comes down to is a case of, is it worth it? Not really. Like, so what is it? Did Nintendo say you won't get to be Bowser again? Did they say we're going to pull Kung Fu Panda? Like, what was the thing that caused you not just to pull these plans, but also to stamp your career this far in with a gross level of inconsistency? That's what gets me, because it's like there are Jack Black characters in normal films like Shallow Hal who are more offensive assholes than what was said.
No,
and
yeah,
it's
I
like,
agree.
and it's not that people don't change. He's older, he's gray in the beard, he's got grown children, like or at least teenagers. Maybe he wants to hang out with Grogu again. I don't know, but it's like,
I mean, who wouldn't?
What was the thing? Because this is so in line with everything you do.
I really agree with that. Like I said, that's why I started by saying I'm not here to completely understand it or defend it. I do think there's something once a politician got involved, no matter we could say what he's aligned with, but he is a politician with probably some semblance of power. Once they're saying we're deporting you, a record company, a tour company, the agents, everything. Now you're involved. Now it's texts, emails, all these kind of things. It's probably a panic situation. And yeah, I think could be related to that, but I'm not even saying it as a defense of just like to your question of like what changed. I don't know. That's why I go to the personal stuff of now we're here. It used to be in the green room at the Largo that you caused some problems for me, but now it's here. And maybe that's it. But again, I don't, nothing about it's a good look. If he had said we're going to put a pause or we have to cancel the tour because all the venues have made that decision for us. I don't know. So maybe there's some clarity.
And we should note Kyle also put out a thing. So it's like maybe they came to a joint.
Yeah.
Maybe they came to a joint approach with their team. Ken Plume in the comments. Hello, Ken. The other Ken's. Yeah. It's like when they did Alien and then Aliens. You guys should make that a thing. Ken's. Sometimes a person in a bad relationship is just looking for a way out. Like, yeah, that's it too. Like this could have just been the excuse. Ultimately, I want
to be clear. Me and Plume, we've talked about this too. We both know people that know them. So it's like, we're making a giant not even assumption. We're just putting that out there. That's what I read a lot in the situation.
It's an inference. Yeah,
it's an inference. I read a lot of the situation, but I also want to talk a little bit about the joke itself, and like again, if my grandmother was alive, she would have texted me that. But words matter, and I have to be consistent. I have said this for a long time in the company. Words matter, and there's not a lot of there's just jokes. Meaning, I think Kyle's just joking in a situation, but words do matter, and I think there's a little bit of there's a reaping of what the comedy world sometimes sows here that maybe force some hands where. Yeah, I saw the clip too. Jack does laugh, but again, Alden, I have to own my biases here on this.
Of course,
I have been on the desk when someone made a stereotypical Asian voice and did the squinty eye thing, and I had to kind of go, what, huh? Because you're like again.
Uncomfortable laughter is a thing. It absolutely is
a thing.
Yeah,
and especially if you're a broadcaster, you're trying to keep the show going, and I still feel sorry for Billy Bush. I'm sorry. I still feel sorry for Billy Bush. Where I'm just like, what? Like
Billy Bush is out there. Like I have one person still feeling bad.
Yeah,
we got him.
No, it's like he lost his job, and it was just like, Anyways, so I want to be clear. I think a lot of what you're saying makes sense. The James Gunn thing, and It feels as like I don't want to say one side, but you know what I mean when I say that. It feels like there's a victory for the pearl clutchers.
Yeah.
Who are not offended because they're wearing Kotex pads and cheering on the hammer when Trump talks about Nancy Pelosi. So it feels exasperating and exhausting.
It's bringing up James Gunn because it was the same thing. It's like who are you now giving the moral victory? The same people that insist that cancel culture exists. They insist upon it. They're naming their specials. They're trying to figure out every way to fit canceled and triggered into a title that hasn't been taken already. And yet they are getting a Netflix special. They are never canceled. Only Kyle Gass, Kathy Griffin, they seem to be the ones that actually face consequences. Darina is here talking about Trump almost getting killed, has summoned Darina. Hey guys, words are not violence. Jack Black is a narc and doesn't want to lose Bowser money. Yeah, Darina, I touched on Bowser. Like business element.
I love Darina. I just don't agree. I don't think that's the whole picture of it. Darina knows some of the people that I've distanced myself from because of the shitty things they kept saying on shows.
Yeah,
and publicly people would question me on it because it's not the names you're thinking of.
Yeah,
a lot of people are like, hey, how come that thing isn't still going?
The words are not violence point I think is interesting too, because it's like, and not to refute or speak for Darina at all. I think it's like they're not in most cases until they are, like, not saying Kyle, but like I think that a lot of Trump's words are violence.
Anti-trans jokes,
that's violence
to me, are violence. But I think so. There's a date again.
Who's exempt? Like
going to my point of view of that warning is on the elevator or escalator for a reason. That's where I think some of the consistency might fall down if we're like, no big deal. He just joked about Trump's near death versus that comic can't say it. Because I don't believe in cancel culture as the right says it. I don't. It's silly. It's actually a reward culture.
Does not exist. Yeah,
it does not exist. But there is kind of a sense of heightened understanding and responsibility for what you say, which I'm going to be clear, it's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. I have jokes about changing the words I say or looking at things. It's just it gets murky fast, and this is one of those situations for me. But again, is any of this a good look? No.
Buck bringing up hate speech, why we have categories. Darina, this is 100% it. Darina does in 6 words, but it will take me 60. Empathy for people, never for oppressors. Like,
agreed.
That's it. Darina with 6 words, representing the number of the beast. Very appropriate. Appropriate for her, appropriate for Tenacious D.
Maybe she said it 6 times.
It's complicated 3 times, in the sense of like you don't want to see a lack of solidarity for people that like we said, like, should be making fun of them or should be poking things, or consistency. But like it's like, again, who are we giving power to? Like they don't need credence for their bullshit. And like we're gonna move now into the RNC and sort of the future. as we continue this crazy week between Anytime episodes. It's like when this is all happening with Tenacious D, it further frustrates and highlights what is happening at the circus that is the RNC, because it's like, okay, Kyle made this joke and Jack's upset for personal / business / whatever, and he pulls an Alan Horn and cancels his buddy, and maybe he'll reverse course, because as we all know, James Gunn got his job back and he's doing just fine.
Postscript on that, my final thought: there'll be a reunion show that will do well for both of them.
Yeah, and also postscript on your postscript, PPS, as some would say back when they wrote letters, is that people pointed out how perfect a Tenacious D storyline it is that Australia wants to deport them, because where would you be deporting them to, Australia? Back here, where they're closer to the person you want to protect.
Yeah, or get the criminals out of Van Diemen's land. We don't want them here, even though that's what started it here.
Tenacious D Global Fugitives is going to be their next feature. It's going to happen. Anyway,
I agree.
That's frustrating, and it was annoying. And if that ever happens with Ken and I, well, we'll see what happens. But when we move into this other celebrity, what seems like a celebrity festival for people your uncle really likes, it's like Kid Rock and one Hulk Hogan brother who not just was there, but arguably stole the show in the worst way, which he would be very happy about.
Can I just say, the look on that bigot's face when the crowd was cheering, you could make the Homelander meme connection, but you could tell he was like, I haven't felt this since WrestleMania 17. This is great.
Oh, yeah. Because he knows that the younger generation in his industry hates him. The fans have grown to be, if not split, bleeding hate. He's gotten booed just being mentioned. He's banned from the other company outright.
As is his ex-wife.
So it's like, as is his ex-wife, which was going around, which is hilarious. Tony Khan's old tweets. And so here we are. Yeah, Will McLean points out, Kid Rock, Hulk Hogan, Linda McMahon, WWE corporate meeting. Yeah. Definitely the old guard.
With WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump running for president. Yeah, absolutely.
With Hall of Famer Donald Trump. And who created that Hall of Fame? The person under FBI investigation.
Yeah.
And Glenn Jacobs, the former Big Red Machine. And so I guess he still is a Big Red Machine. Ha ha.
Hey, good one.
But
I'm not leaving the show for that joke.
No, that was okay. That was all right. Instagram statement later from Ken at Ken Knapsack. Yeah. So in terms of the RNC stuff, I don't have as much of I know Ken's point, he knows mine. We have a plan to talk about this. This was just to get to the lay of the land, the landscape, and Biden and Trump. You got to touch on it. We will also touch on the DNC when that happens. But the RNC is hilarious in the most horrible ways. Noah says, you guys have to talk about Grindr crashing because of the increased activity around the area of the RNC. Yeah. Grindr, the dating app for the queer community, one of their top officials or creator, maybe executive, talked about how that's their Super Bowl is the RNC, so make of that what you will.
Did they, side note, did they ever show? I would love back end proof of that, because not that I doubt it, because it's a great and great. Also tragic that all these people who repress their true self and identity, isn't that tragic on another level? But I would love to see the back end stats on it.
Yeah, 100%. Is there a way that like AMC where I can become an investor and then get to see other stuff? By the way, everybody watching, you can just check the box that says you're an investor on your AMC app and get free popcorn and stuff. They don't ask you to prove it. But just so you know, if anybody was like, I don't want to pay for concessions, you could just claim you're an investor. The Trump speech that Eli points out was bizarre. Robert Meadows, bigger circus than normal. Maddie Gunner's here, hilarious in the most pitiful way. Referring to Dana White, calling him the toughest man ever. Yeah, Dana White and Kane both said he's the toughest guy in the world, and it's all right. Now you have been open about the fact that you've had quite a journey over the last decade with not just changing, official allegiances, but opening up and seeing things differently, and et cetera, et cetera. This is an event that I think the word changed would be an understatement. That I think it used to be more so boring and old, and like the biggest headline from it used to be Clint Eastwood in the chair shit. But now here we are, and it's like I long for the days of Clint Eastwood in the chair.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what am I trying to say? I still to this day, one thing that's consistent with me is I don't think the RNC or the DNC are anything but really over the top orchestrated pep rallies. And I know that sounds very cynical, but I'm going to be, the DNC this year is going to have a lot of importance, right? I will be paying attention, but I've never been so moved by or upset by any speech on any side for 25 years of an active political life, but also I was very apathetic for a long time. So that might factor into it. I do think the history of these conventions are fascinating. I always talk, I mean, again, read the 1912 DNC, I think it was, that went to like 4 a.m. because they couldn't come to a decision on a candidate, and there was marching, there was like a mini riot, like it was insane stuff. Like I now that's all tame and it seems so orchestrated, but so I want to be clear, like this was a clown show, but I've always kind of seen them as clown shows. This was just the Barnum and Bailey's clown show of clown shows and circuses.
It's like the natural endpoint almost for what it is.
And I will say this, from my Republican voting past, I think I used to watch some of the RNC stuff, and I think only recently I came to terms with it, wanting to see the next rising stars emerge and hoping they were younger, better, and interesting enough, we'll maybe tie into our conversation later, but that had the future in hold, that maybe were closer to what I wanted. And you'd get this false hope of Bobby Jindal and all these people showing up, or even the 12 hours we thought Palin was a great choice. And it was, for 12 hours, we like, checkmate, we won. Like I had Democratic friends going, you guys won. And then the first interviews came out. But Dwayne Johnson showing up was a big get. Like I had, so I have to like that. And then as I slowly changed, this has now become just more of an eye roll. This one was parody. It was parody. And the idiocracy connections are it's like, duh. Like everyone made that joke because it was in front of us. Anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my starting point with conventions.
Taking your temperature on it, because it's like this is not like Jack Black and Kyle Gass or the assassination or what we're going to touch on with Biden, where it's like I'm
not defending Hulk Hogan.
I don't have points beyond look at how dumb this is. Like that's sort of the extent of my feeling. Like you could touch on specific things. You mentioned the future. Of course, I'm receiving a note here from my producers. This is not a real note. I'm doing a John story right now.
I really thought your dog
and it says the future is apparently just Matt Gaetz. So that's all I got.
I mean,
that's your young guy.
I gotta tell you something. That shit dick I give him a little points for bravery, for looking in the mirror and going, nailed it, and heading out on that floor. As
Charlie and I talked about off air, we're both big Batman guys, and you remember, of course, the Keaton is Batman. Like he looks like not just Jack's Joker, but Jack Nicholson's Joker when he paints over his Joker face to look normal again. That's like when he's, with Vicky. Like it was a wild. Like it was just bananas.
Look, I want to be clear. I know people that make some changes, and we live in a world where body positivity should be considered. And I just think you got the people I know that do it, they time it a little better. Maybe 2 days before you let that thing kind of calm down a bit.
And then he's out there doing like Joker behavior too, like on the floor, like McCarthy's being interviewed and he's like interrupting him. Like
this asshole has made me like understand and feel bad for Kevin McCarthy, like who I think is just an inept Bakersfield nut job. And I want McCarthy to turn around and punch him. Oh, I just incited violence. I apologize. You can leave the show if you want. You know what I mean? Like that clip was infuriating, but also with that guy kind of going, "Shut up, Gaetz," and Gaetz is like, "I gotta go."
Yeah, like just scurried away. Gaetz getting more gender affirming care than his constituents. I mean, everybody agreeing with the Joker. Ken Plume is sending you both some Brawndo. Stay hydrated.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was a joke. The whole thing was a joke. Again, we talked about the people they've assembled here. Hulk Hogan. We're not gonna go down a whole wrestling tangent, but like it's all there in the history. Like I tweeted, like there's not much more to say. This is a guy who infamously made workers' rights battle 100 times harder. Like when it could have changed, he is the reason it did not. And
to those who don't know, the quick story: pro wrestlers who are famously non-union and even not considered employees by a company that locks them down to a contract. In the mid '80s, Jesse the Body Ventura, who he himself has some both interesting and bizarre takes in the world, I'll say, but there's actually some things I listen to Jesse and I go, I hear you, the Body. In the mid '80s, tried to lead a union, tried to start a wrestlers union, and Hogan ratted him out. And
Hogan ratted him out because Hogan was making, I think it was about like 200% more than everyone else in the locker room or something like that, and obviously wanted to protect that. So it started there. Wrestling fans, hit me or Ken up off air if you want more specifics about locker room stuff and history and creative. But it's the union stuff, and then it was the late 2000s and 2010s.
The racist stuff?
Racism stuff, yeah. That was the second Hogan sucks turn, which was, I can't even repeat some of the stuff he said, nor would I ever. But the audio is out there about his daughter and who she dates, and it got to the point where even Vince McMahon, being an awful person himself, understood, like, yeah, dude, like even they cut ties for a few years. They brought him back, but black talent that's in the industry right now, people like Xavier Woods and people that they're in the locker room have spoken about how, like, yeah, we had to have whole meetings about it, and like there was apologies were had and everything, and like they're still not happy. Of course they're not happy. So like he fits the bill, and so does Glenn Jacobs, and then so does Kid Rock. Like these are not serious individuals. These are might makes right macho showman caricatures, and and again, it's all irony, like with Matt Gaetz and like his like, let me do stuff to my body so I can appear the way I want to appear. You also pair that with the fact that Hulk Hogan appears as Hulk Hogan and not Terry Bollea. So he gets to have his chosen name, but no one else should. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. You have to use his work name, not his shoot name. Yeah. That's a very fascinating way to look at it too. And one thing I'll say about these names is, like, I always think the test is, what does those outside the immediate circles of impact feel about this there? And I don't know how much this turns the dial for all the Republicans I know, but a lot of them, it's indicative of them being stuck about 20 to 25 years in the past. I have friends who still, but Hogan, man, he was my childhood hero. Got it. Things have changed. I get it. Yeah. We've all been challenged by certain people we looked up to that like those horrible Jedi. It's a different conversation. I need a drink for that. But Kid Rock, the friends of mine who are like thumbs up to it, like they're still wearing the jeans and listening to Kid Rock from 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And I'm all for nostalgia, but they haven't changed. They haven't grown. They haven't moved forward in any way, shape, or form. I was a fan of USC, and I am a fan of mixed martial arts and those that participate, but you can tell where it's ended up now, and maybe that's not surprising. But Dana White, just who he is, I'd want no part of that. I want no part of giving that man money if I can avoid it at this point. That's a stance I'll take, but I don't fault anyone who still buys a pay-per-view and everything. It's a complicated world, but you know what I mean? All that like
everything has that level of like,
because we could we could make the joke about Scott Baio and Kevin Sorbo and these has-beens. But that's a different category. These are still pretty. Hulk Hogan's still pretty known. People get the reference, and if you've just stopped evolving 20 years ago, this is a thumbs up from you, and that's indicative of the bigger picture of the RNC and the Republican Party to me.
100% for his industry, which is, as we've talked about in our off-air conversations, the only entertainment industry on an upswing is professional wrestling. They're having really the only one, which is shocking. The only one. They're having a boom that they have not seen since like the late 90s. So, and great. But most people still look to that industry, that marriage of sport and performance art. And when you ask them who's a wrestler, he's still in the top 4 people name.
He still is.
Yeah. It's always, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold. And then maybe they'll throw in Cena. So it's like, That's where we're at. He's still culturally significant. And I compared him on Twitter to Jerry Seinfeld, where it's like you can have like this, you can acknowledge, of course, like he's a foundational cornerstone. Like that'll never not be. Like the industry exists now because he existed then. But that does, and you touch on it too. Like we all have things, we all have people in comedy or sports or whatever. Like I've talked about this on the show before. My explicitly like wrote essays about the guy was my hero in middle school was Joss Whedon. It's like, I'm also a Harry Potter fan, like, and have been since I was a kid. And like, we've seen the way that these things have gone. But like you're saying, when you don't have growth and you don't acknowledge what's changed, this still becomes a pick that they can point to and use. And him ripping the shirt, literally, by the way, ripping the American flag to reveal Trump Vance is like one of those images where it's like, oh, you guys don't get the image you're using. You guys are going to celebrate that, but like you really lost the plot there.
Wow, really? You were really insightful. Okay, America's being ripped away, turned into MAGA. Whoa, no, and also probably a violation of some flag code. There's a guy down the street who always walk past his house, and he's got a "Don't Tread on Me" flag and Marine flag, and he's got a American flag on a pole, and he's got the lights. He's following the rules. When it's raining out, he takes it down unless he has the light on. He follows the rules. And he probably is like, rip that American flag off. And
he knows he's in Hollywood, right? He knows he's
Burbank, buddy. Burbank.
True. Yeah. Burbank. So there's all that. Shockingly, we've gotten through this whole Republicans conversation without touching on the fact that, oh, please. No, please.
Well, one final point, and I think maybe it's just, I'm belaboring the point, is it's fascinating too, going back, I guess I'm belaboring, but like with the Hogan thing specifically, the friends of mine who love him are aware of the things. And they don't care, right? It's not like they're ignorant. Like my mom and dad would be shocked to find out. I don't know if it would change their vote, but they'd be shocked to find out Hulk Hogan said those things, right? They don't know. But I got people who know. I got people in the wrrestling business who know, and their answer is, that's a big problem.
No, 100%. I don't know how to change that. The people that have shifted in the business, like, the big names won't touch on it for obvious reasons, and then the small names are too small. Like, and the only person that's mouthing off about it is CM Punk, who mouths off about everybody. So it's like, of course.
And who's a known problem. There's
an interview going around with him where they're like, "Who was your favorite growing up?" And he says, Roddy Piper. And the interviewer is like, "Not Hulk Hogan." And Punk's like, well, they're like, "But haven't you met him?" And he goes, "Yeah, that didn't help." It made it worse.
Yeah. Whereas, Piper late in life was carried the weight of a lot of the things, wanted to make better for some of the things that had happened in his past.
Yeah. So Ken Plume says Burbank is Hollywood's suburban backlot. I think that's nice.
It is, with like a lot of cities in America, a pretty complicated, troubling past.
Yeah. Stay tuned for a future edition of Hot Burbank Nights. Suburban Burbank Days.
Stay tuned for was your town and is it a sundown town? Yeah, maybe.
Speaking of people that probably like sundown towns, we didn't talk about the fact that there's a vice presidential pick. We've gone an hour and 13 minutes without bringing up the fact that on top of the assassination attempt, on top of Tenacious D breaking up, on top of the RNC and Hulkamagia running wild, we are now here with the hillbilly LG himself, Ron Howard's biggest mistake, JD Vance. By the way, I all the love in the world to Ron Howard. I feel so bad. All he did was adapt a book. He had no idea.
I get it.
I feel so bad for the guy. Ron is just trying to enjoy life. Please don't be mad at Ron Howard.
I would love though if Ron would come out and just be like, I have decided to release or take that movie off of every shelf possible. In fact, if you own it digitally, I'm going to take it away from you.
Yeah, I'm pulling it from Amazon. Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it's in the top 10 Netflix streams right now, which is horrible. But anyway, JD Vance gets chosen, and those of you that don't know, this guy sucks. A lot of people, that man is not Appalachian. A lot of people from the region pointing out how horribly inaccurate the book is, different things about his story that he has tried to pin on immigrants, but really were the problem of his own family and others. His stances range from national abortion to doesn't believe in divorce rights, and that if a woman is in a violent marriage, she should have to stay because of the kids. He is a person who wants to roll back rights for queer people. Obviously, of course, that's his stance because he's being picked by Trump. This has been described, I think, very accurately as when you pair him with Pence. Pence was the let me trick them person, and then this is the let me get vengeance on them person. This is the more aggressive, younger version. He's dangerous, although to loop back into the beginning of the conversation, has also outright said that Trump could be America's Hitler, and has said all these things about him. He is an outright grifter in the most real sense of the word. He's changed all of his policies. People that knew him in college have come out and said that back in college, he would hang out with, one of his friends was trans and was like there for them after their affirming care. And like, so this is somebody who is exclusively in it for power. And I just am saying all this now because we talked about all these other clowns that didn't address that pretty huge news.
Yeah, he is. I think he's tremendously dangerous because he can spin a good yarn, right? That's whereas we saw, Trump's hour and 32-minute speech or whatever it was. Like, there's still folks who are like on probably those. My parents didn't watch Trump's speech. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, but they can. I haven't heard directly from them. I want to get my parents off the hook here. It's also been a tough week for my family. We got through some stuff health-wise with my mom, so I want to have empathy for them. But like, they're the ones who'll be like, "Oh, isn't his story uplifting?" Like, my mom recently read Clarence Thomas's autobiography. It was like, he's just so inspiring. Like, are you what?
Yeah.
Stop watching dog shows on Discovery and watch what's going on. So that's why he's scary to me in a lot of other ways in the grift. And I don't have a smart take on him that can rise above the take of comedian Trey Crowder. If you know who Trey Crowder is, he is from a rural part of Tennessee. Great comic. He actually moved not too far from me. I was just on a show with him at Flappers recently, and very political, and has a great show, The Weekly Skews, and does viral videos. And he went viral around the same time that J.D. Vance went to kind of Hillbilly Elegy was making the rounds. And so they ended up together in an event, and they ended up having beers together. And Trey Crowder tells the story of, back then, this is 2016, 2017 range or whatever. He's like, I found some common ground with the guy. I thought I left the conversation. It's Trey's story to tell. Look up his Instagram channel or his YouTube channel. But he's like, I left the conversation going, all right, I think there's some sane Republicans left. This guy might get some of it. We came to an agreement on what the dangers of Trump were. And then Trey just, flips that script to where we are now and just kind of drives home what you're talking about. This is a grift on a dangerous, scary level. He is mini mega looking to become major mega.
100%. It's malignant dishonesty and a betrayal of his own. And not that far be it from me to like act like I know the inner workings of his home. And there are a lot of people within marginalized groups that have stances that are anti their own group. Gays for Trump exists, So it's like once that was established, it was pretty clear that all bets were off. But like his wife being a person of color, being Indian, his son, therefore half Indian, his son whose name is Vivek, like it cannot pass with these communities. And we have seen some of the racist, horrible, alt-right grifter types with their YouTube shows trying to dance around the fact that his wife and children are the people that they normally would go after. And like, as Kingsport points up here, snake eating its own tail. Absolutely. I mean, that's their whole thing. It's gross. So he's there. He's a factor now. This is the person that will be on the ticket and will be debating at a date to be determined. Kamala Harris? ? Probably. Possibly not. We'll see. And that's sort of where we're going to end. We're at an hour 20, so this is not going to be the full version of this. Not going to be the full version of this Biden conversation, which I already did a little bit of my piece on with our British correspondents, which is what I'm just calling them now collectively. Our British correspondents, our crack team over in the kingdom. Maddie Gunner and Charlie Ashby from Holy Snokes and Imperial Senate podcast. And we touched on it a little right now it's like I don't want to do this whole exhaustive version and then news breaks because like statements are coming and the weekend is here and everybody is
yeah.
Everyone like this could be the most dated little tangent ever in a few days.
It really good.
So I think a week from today we'll do a more established version.
Well, you're going to bring your British correspondents. I'm in Comic-Con next Friday, so.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Speaking of grifted, come on down. See me say offensive words. I'll be doing comedy with Mark Ellis, Malcolm Barrett, Joe Starr, Nick Scarpino, Kyle Lewis, and more.
Wow. I didn't even get an offer for mozzarella sticks at this event. No, I can't go to California. I can't go. I don't have the money for that right now. But
they won't let you. Anyways,
maybe next year for the 43rd annual comedy show. I forget what number
for the Mark Ellis and Friends. It's a fun show. It's a fun show.
I still have never seen Mark, which is one of the weirdest things. I've never seen Mark live. Okay. I've met Mark more than once, but I've never seen him live. So maybe not next week, but whenever. This entire party makeup could be different, and I think as I said to you in text, and we've talked about it, and we both talked about it with each other and 100 other people, and I'm sure it comes up in your house just like it comes up in mine. We're at this interesting crossroads right now where everybody with sense who does not want fascists to take power again, who does not want Project 2025, which is very real and is not just a thing that's being thrown around. It's not just terminology. It's a published doc. Like this is a real threat. Nobody wants this. Nobody who is decent wants this. And it's gross and disgusting and horrible. And what we have come to is an interesting divide, interesting with the tone of horror, where one side is saying, generally, there is only one way to stop this, therefore stop rocking the boat. And the other side is saying, we think you're sending in a loser of a boat, and therefore shouldn't we be trying to do anything to increase 50-50 to 51-49 or potentially better? And I've been trying to be very careful and diplomatic, especially online. I've said this almost exactly in Twitter thread form of like, I understand both. I feel both. I think I lean more one way, but it's like, it's not that we're disagreeing on endgame. It's that one side thinks there's only one winner and one side thinks that same person might be a loser. And that's a scary place to be because in 2020, as I'm sure you remember, and I do, 2020, the talking point was constantly because Biden had lost a lot of the momentum in that. He had lost like 4 states and like, that Bernie had beaten him like 4 times. And what's going to happen with Mayor Pete? What's going to happen with Kamala? And then, infamously the phone calls and everything. And then unity, right? Then everybody backed him. Okay, cool. Then it was that 50-50 2020. And everybody who did fall in line, myself included, I voted Joe. And I should also say, I will again. And I think, I don't know a single friend of mine that won't. I can say that pretty honestly. I don't know a single friend that's not going to, because I've talked about some of this and I've gotten some DMs from people I like that are like, but Alden, you can't. And I've had to be like, oh, don't mistake me. I'm not sitting it out. And I want to stop these guys as much as you do. But in 2020, it was, well, let's just get through this and then we can work on the future. Well, here we are in 2024, and I'm getting the same pat on the head, the same, just get through this, and then we can work on the future. And if in 2028 I'm being told, let's just get through this, and then we can work on the future, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah, I like that point that you just made there. I also agree with what you said up top of this could also be moot within an hour. So, but you had the chance to bring on your British correspondents and hold court for a bit. And the only thing I'll say, I'll start here. I acknowledge what you're saying. There's never been a point where I think you, Alden Diaz, or anyone in your circle is like, well, that's it. I'm voting for Jill Stein. Like I'm not. That's condescending for me to think or say that to you. I get where you come from. I really like your point of we're both trying to win. We have a difference of opinion over the sides over how to do it. I am a keep Biden on the ticket guy, but what you were saying right there is very true. Again, highlighting that I was on the other team as of 2012. Yeah. These are the moments that we used to sit around in my break room at work, and me and 5 cops would make fun of y'all. You know what I mean? Like, look at them eating themselves. They snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And so I carry that into this a little bit too. Yeah. But I really want to acknowledge what you're saying, Alden. I really think you're saying something right. We are just fighting over how we think we should win because we want to win. And I think it's fair. We all saw the debate. I watched it live for about 5 minutes on my blathering show and then shut my show off because I need to watch this with all eyes right now. And I did watch all the debate, and I thought he got better along the way, but it doesn't matter. The conversation's out there. So I have these worries. And I think what you're saying about in 2020, we heard this, now we're here in 2024, that's part of the issue that a lot of conversations I've had with my friends, and it isn't divided by generation or age. Most of them are my generation, I will say, but I got a friend 5 years older than me who's like, should have replaced him the next morning, right? So it's not easily divided.
Yeah, these are generalizations for sure. Yeah,
I think in general you can say it is divided, but a lot of it from my friends who I've had conversations with, people I podcast with, people I have breakfast with, people I do shows with, are like, that's the problem. We don't have our Project 2025. We don't have that. This started not with Reagan. It started in the 60s. It started with Goldwater. It started with, this was a long-term, as Otto Hightower would say, he's got to have the long view. So it's frustrating that I signed a free agent deal to play for this team, and I'm like, oh, you all really didn't have a plan. So it's frustrating, and I feel your frustration because this should have been a conversation 16 to 18 months ago. I agree with that. And also I won't say even the decline, let's just say the aging is pretty apparent. He's not Mick Jagger, who's about the same age on stage dancing around. It's very real. Do have... Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that. I'm glad you brought up the Biden age thing because I think there's a general misunderstanding, maybe, again, general, of generations of like people above the 20-somethings think that we're obsessed with age. Let me tell you right now, if they walked back, Dial of Destiny's the end and started making Indy 6 tomorrow, I'm fucking in. Like, I'm in. It has nothing to do. That's the least of my concern.
It's the difference. There's just we all going to handle the end differently in our own lives.
Yeah.
And I bring up the Mick Jagger example, but let's look just basic pop culture film. Look at Spielberg right now. Look at Lucas right now. Yeah. They are acting, walking, talking, and performing differently.
They are.
They are. And that's
part of that. And Scorsese, like that part of this is like when you stay in your game, like that, there's that, like people talk about with John Williams, like, why is he like this at 92? Well, because he's doing a mentally stimulating activity every day and he didn't retire.
Yeah. And then you got the stress, how many times have we seen those pictures? Here's Barack on his first day in office. Here's Barack on his last. And who see it? So
and how many Joe, like the Joe versus Paul Ryan debate has been going around a lot.
Even an interview in his presidency 3.5 years ago. And there, for the grace of God,
he's on it. So it's like, that's not my big thing. And real world stuff, like, I've touched on it a little bit here on this show. The very first episode of Anytime, and I think I told you after, but I didn't even tell you when it was happening.
All right.
My grandmother was dying in this house while we did the very first.
Yeah. You didn't tell me till the week after.
I didn't tell you till the week after because I was like, money's been spent, schedules have been cleared, graphics have been bought, promotion has happened.
Right.
I can't live life right now like this. If it happened, like I just need to, and that was because of dementia and brain degenerative stuff and everything. And my mom took care of her for the last couple of years.
Right.
I showed my mom debate clips. I showed my mom before and afters. I showed my mom Jon Stewart's coverage so she could have a laugh about it. And my mom was like, who was a nurse for 20 years. My mom was like, ugh. So like there is a conversation there, but I'm not going to presume to be the one that has it. But it's just like, I think there's a lot of like, there are people that I like who, are like liberal, comic book writers or artists or whatever that I follow that are making constant shots of like Captain America 4 trailer. Too bad Harrison's old in it, right? Or Yoda, is he too old to lead the Jedi? It's like, okay, you guys are now focusing on this media talking point and ignoring why we really think this, which is the polling is bad and getting worse.
Sure.
And whether or not you are a poll person is that's
polls,
always
I know.
Big poll asterisks.
Polls are an issue. I get you.
Polls getting worse. The support from the youth is nowhere near what it was in 2020 for the obvious issues of the genocide in Palestine and the response on campuses. That has been huge. The fact that Roe is being dangled now as a 24 to 28 promise when it was lost not during Trump, it was lost now instead of being codified. And this is without getting into the rabbit hole of you technically have immunity to do whatever you want right now, Joe.
You could have shot him.
You could codify whatever. So it's like we're in this place now where it's like it is very similar to 2020, but arguably worse. And whether he was young or old is just on top of that fact. It's like, I'm not saying I have the perfect solution or that like remove Joe tomorrow. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if it looks like Kamala can squeeze 1 or 2 points in some key places, it's a conversation worth having. And not having it and not having a primary and squashing all of this. And as John Stewart said, doing the shut the fuck up and get on board bumper sticker is not good. Because last point, and then I'll throw the mic back. That debate was like, it was a bad performance, and like even Barack Obama said this, and it's like we all knew it was bad, but it wasn't just bad because it was bad. It was bad because this man that you are facing, this existential threat, is and should be the easiest person to crucify on a mic in the world. It should be the easiest person for any seasoned veteran politician to defeat in a debate. It should be really easy. And yet we are picking the one person that maybe can't. And whether they do a second round, I don't know. But that's sort of where we're at. It's not necessarily, I think there's been a misconception of like the youth right now are trying to throw it because they hate Biden. And it's like, no, the youth right now are trying to claw for percentages.
Right. I know. I appreciate you explaining it in that kind of way. I think to pull it back to a couple weeks, like I've been upset at, like I'm not a perpetually online person, meaning I don't go out and I got a sandwich today. I saw Captain America, and it's that stuff's starting to drive me really crazy in all aspects of life. And I think there was some of what was upsetting me even 2-3 weeks ago of folks. And I know you're online more than me. Let's be clear. You've lived with this in a different way than I have. I'm not saying my way's right or your way's wrong. I'm just saying I got exactly even the Palpatine versus Yoda jokes, everything. It all becomes just this mishmash of bull roar that we need to wade through. And then the stuff you're saying right now, Alden, is very articulate and understandable to me in a way that is not coming across online by the masses, right? I too have seen some people I know upset me where I'm like, you wouldn't say that to my face in the lobby bar. But you get to tweet that. And so now I'm upset and you're upset.
Or
now we're
alternatively, it's like, wouldn't say it because it would upset you. Or a different frustration, which is, fuck, I know if we were in person, this would be better.
We would be better. And I saw some great statements this week of people going, this should have been an in-house thing, but that's hard to do. But going back to even what I was saying before, like without a doubt, Reagan was showing signs of senility in his first debate with Mondale in 1984, and it was a different time, and the Republicans they stick to the plan. And I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm not telling you, again, pat it on the head and going, stick with the plan. I'm just saying that starts to boil up in me. And then, even again, I talk about the Palin thing. I'm still to this day a McCain fan. I want to be clear, and I want people to know that he's made a lot of mistakes and probably some things that I wouldn't agree with now that I agree with him. But just overall as a person, as a politician, I like John McCain, right? And I sat there after those 12 hours going, no, guys, it's great. She ran Alaska. Like, what are you doing? Vote. And meanwhile, watching Hillary's crowned moment be taken away by, a candidate who's like, they're telling me not to run, but I'm going to run. And it's fascinating politics. But all that's cascaded and tidal waved into my heart and soul the last couple of weeks, where I'll say this, I am a keep him in, get over the finish line and sort this out before 2028, because I really agree with you, Alden. Really agree with you. What is our Project 2025? What as one of my friends, I won't bring his name in, but we have breakfast all the time. He's like, "What's your plan in 20 years to get Marcus Flowers the White House, or to get someone else the White House?" We need that, and that's a conversation. But this all happened fast. The one thing and the final thing, and it's funny because AOC went. Everyone's talking about her hour speech last night. She said a lot of things that I've been talking privately for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where I don't know because I'm not an election expert. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a dumb Star Wars podcaster and a dumber comic. But I do have fears that Heritage Foundation is ready to sue. That there is some things.
That's huge. Yeah,
it's huge, and it's a problem because we see where the Supreme Court's gone. And I do feel that's where I still have a little bit of get this over the finish line.
Yeah. Is Clarence Thomas going to decide the election?
Yeah, we don't want that. And I think that's a reality. And I just think in the shouting and sharing of Yoda gifts, that could be lost because I know you agreed too. You know what I mean? Like you said, if we were at dinner, this would be a fun conversation and we'd have breadsticks.
And that's
that's part of my frustration. If I voice any frustration to you, even privately, it's a little bit of the text this, don't tweet this.
Yeah.
Because my final point, my final point.
No,
now my mom and dad, who don't follow every day because they're watching American Idol and Dr. What's his name saving a calf on Discovery Channel, are now like, I heard he's incapable of being president, which it might be true. But now they're like, there's no chance. Why am I going to vote for the vegetable when I can vote for this man who survived a gunshot?
Yeah.
And that's where I just kind of go, put it back in the box, but we can't. It's a modern age.
Maybe we should stop broadcasting internal debate, which I'm not sure
which is impossible these days, right?
Specifically how, and I'm not saying that Ken Plume, I'm not asking Ken Plume, what's your plan for stopping it? No, but it's a point, whether that's amongst the party, whether that's Clooney, which is an interesting thing as well, because I also think Clooney came at it not just as a top Democratic donor, but also as a vengeful husband, because
I love George Clooney and I love his politics. That was, to me, that was not a good look.
I think I truly believe, and I understand it, that the Biden administration undermined the International Criminal Court. They absolutely did.
I agree with that.
They completely fucked the conclusion, and they're trying to sanction people, trying to hold a genocidal fascist like Netanyahu to account, and Amal Clooney is a part of that. And I think a part of Clooney's response, understandably, was, you're gonna fuck with my wife's job, I'm gonna fuck with yours. I do think there was a little bit of that.
I think it's fair.
Respect it, I guess, on a human level. But I think a part of it too, and again, it would take us another 3 hours to get into this in full, and we'll touch on it again. But Biden has been absolutely dog walked by Netanyahu throughout this entire process. And he got dog walked by Donald J. Trump in that first debate. So it's can he inspire some more confidence? He released a statement about an hour before we started the show today about getting back on the trail and everything, and highlights Project 2025. That's becoming more of their position, which is good. Sure. They should. I do think they need to stop saying it's a 900-page document that outlines. You should probably start outlining for
just
people.
Outlining.
Yeah, you should probably start doing that. Again, it's the game of inches. If Biden is the nominee this time next week, I'm in. If Kamala is the nominee, I'm in, because she is the only other option, we should say.
I agree on that too.
Financially, she's the only other option.
Yeah, an open convention is potentially devastating. I do love that AOC pointed out we have a deadline in Michigan 2 days after that we probably couldn't make. Yeah, that's part of it too.
The deadlines and the fact that not a single cent can go anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that, and all the, for me in the end, that is where I land on it. It's just maybe some practical thoughts. Practical reasons of why I push it over the line. I hear what you're saying about the other things. Now, do I think other than do I think Kamala would have a different view on the Middle East situation? Probably not, right?
No,
that's a long-term frustration with our country that you're expressing, right?
Yeah.
Certainly not the first time we've given money to problematic and dangerous and horrible things, right? So but I hear you on it. I hear you on everything, and I think that's important for this conversation. I hear you.
Yeah, and I do think to my fellow youngins. We're not that young anymore. We're closer to 30. It sucks. There is a level of look, yes, I had the visceral gut disappointment, and what happens with all firebrand progressives of it's a thing. Yeah, there is always the bend or break that happens with some of that, and Bernie fell in line and has always fallen in line, and now his Padawan is doing the same. This is a thing. And that is a much bigger conversation. But I do think we need to focus on it in the sense of if you are a replace Biden, it's not replace him because he's an old fucking, leathery. Like, it's not that. It's just like, if you are talking about this, again, keep it in terms of like what we can factually work with. It is just about bettering the chances. I don't even care if they keep Biden involved and just flip the ticket. I don't know if that's ever been done before, but like he goes to Vice and she goes up. Like, I don't care. I want to win.
We're just going to give him a lollipop, a bag of lollipops. Yeah. He hands it out to kids at the White House. Don't worry, everybody.
To your point, you brought up Trey Crowder. I remember in 2016, Trey being, I believe it was on Bill Maher's show. God, I can't believe I watched that back then. And he said, at the end of the day, do you want to be right or do you want to fucking win? And
right.
That sort of still rings true of like, if what we're fighting for here, again, I don't think people realize the Biden diehards that are really angry with people like me right now, and I get it. I get why you're angry, but please understand I want the same thing as you. They're really angry about it, but they're angry in a way that's acting like it's 55%. It's not. It's not.
I feel that.
Like the pat on the head that you just did in 2020 to us, to the younger progressives, that you need. Like we talked via text a little bit. Like the moderate Republican, the never Trumper, is increasingly endangered, if not a unicorn at this point. And then there's the point that AOC made, which is a valid and good point. He stomps with the elderly. Biden will always have. He will always have that weird verbiage. He does not stop with them, literally. But like he will have that. He always will. I understand that too. But like we do not, what I've always called the third running mate, which was COVID response. Like Trump's failed COVID response drastically helped the Biden administration because they were saying, look at what's happened. Let's try to get through a historical event. That is now not a factor. And the youth have now been viscerally disappointed. You lost Roe. And like I mentioned, it's like, there's a lot of this, well, choose me again, and then we'll do it. And it's like,
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's a lot. That's the cynicism of politics. I do.
And that's every politician. And like,
can you help me win? Text $10. I totally get it.
Exactly. And so now it's like, okay, man, like you're saying to me the same stuff, and you're now saying, and to your point about plans, we did the pick me in 2020 and we'll figure it out and we'll get to the future. Then we didn't. And to borrow a wrestling term that I've borrowed before for this same conversation, they did nothing to put over Kamala Harris. They did. I
agree with that too.
There's not a single. What even is her thing? You know how every like VP and first lady has a thing.
Yeah.
Like that, their focus.
Yep. No, I agree with that. I think she is a choice for a lot of technical reasons. I think she is the choice because of what a bad look that would be to a lot of your party if you're like, we need someone new, and you keep overlooking the woman of color in front of you.
I think her, by all metrics, socially, financially, legally.
Look, and I'm excited about I'd be excited about a Kamala and Mark Kelly ticket. And,
or Shapiro, or I know as Jerry the Cannon Junkie calls her, Big Gretch.
Mate, and there's some dumb realities of our country where I've told you privately, and I'll say them carefully here. It's like who people will or will not vote for. There's some unfortunate probably thoughts behind some of it. So that's why, to me, someone like an astronaut, a white male astronaut, might be a dumb strategy we have to do, and I hate that. I want to be clear.
Not to interrupt you. Kingsport Cal says, "What was that edit?" And Michael says, probably a service issue. If we cut out and we're back now, great. Give me a thumbs up. But if it looked like we skipped, we didn't do anything. So we're rolling with it.
Nothing on my end.
Nothing on mine either. But if it's skipped, maybe it's just YouTube or something. But
we're
good here. So let us know if you're good.
We're good here. We're all fine here. How are you?
The answer to that, anyways, not great. And we're just sort of swimming in this topic right now. And again,
but I want to acknowledge too. I've been upset of this issue. You and I were talking fair night. You said something about there's again talking just a simple age divide. I'm like a lot of friends, and I want to say clear, not all of them. Tip of my cap to Dorina probably out there. We've been angry, and there's a divide that shows up between the young and the old, and part of it is like again I was playing for a different team, but shouldn't have that plan been built in 2008? And you would have a right to ask that question, right? You would have a right to say, "Great, why is it on us now to build a plan? Where was your plan?" And then we would ask the Clinton Gore age, "Where was your plan? You were too busy watching Tabitha Soren and Kurt Loder. Where's your plan?" So it's all fair, and I really like this conversation we had, Alden, because it helped me to calm down and understand it, and there's no part of me that thinks,
because it really comes down to, I think, again, I keep going to the sort of like gambling metaphor of like, what we are at right now is an ideological clash between gamble on 50-50 or gamble on trying to change the odds. Like, it's sort of like in the Steve Jobs film, which is one of my favorite films. It's my Letterboxd 4 faves. Follow me on Letterboxd.
Follow me on Letterboxd.
Steve says to Andy Hertzfeld before the Mac launch, "Right now you're playing Russian roulette. Why don't you try to take some more bullets out of the gun and reverse those odds?" Like, and you know, it's like, but I do think we should caution, as we have here again, a don't replace and a replace if it'll help. Different views.
Yeah,
it is still the same end game, and the answer is not you stupid old establishment lib dems. Oh, you dumb young lefty privileged little bitches. Like that. Neither of those things is going to help, because the thing about them, as they've shown with Hulk and Rock, is that they always fall in line. Yes. That's why I don't think that the Never Trumper actually exists. I'm sure they do, but like en masse, I don't think it's a demographic that like changes.
I agree with you. It's a nice thing to say and a nice thought. I think a lot of them get afraid. You know, my mom is my poor mom. I always say, one day some of you will meet her and you'll think horrible things about her. She's such a sweet person, but that's part of the problem, Alden, right?
Yeah.
She's lived this wonderful. It's still going strong. Thank God. After some tests this week, she's a wonderful person with a great heart. I'm always like, then that needs to connect to your voting. And she is I don't like Trump, but I just can't bring myself to vote for Joe. I'm a Christian. And I can't change that. I don't know how to change that. And when you know, seeing our side fight and infight, which is natural, because it's never going to be. You think everyone wanted Woodrow Wilson? No. And I wish we didn't have him. He did a lot of damage that we're still dealing with. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I agree with you, and I hear you, and I've been so upset at just the perpetual online society we have, where I make those jokes of, you know, I like an apple, or what do you hate oranges thing is real, right? It's real, and I think you're right to say, let's calm it down a little bit. I'm not voting for Jill Stein. I want the win too, and we should not. And it's hard. The Jedi have some thoughts on this. I know they're horrible now, and we must all root against them. But the Jedi have some thoughts on not letting, confronting fear, not letting fear guide you. And I think we both sides on this one team. There's a stress. I don't want to say fear. I don't want to say you're fearful, but I'm a little fearful. The women in my life are a little fearful, and that can fuel a lashing.
100%, and that's the big dangerous thing too. That's a good, like, not that we want to end on a note of fear. Get fucking afraid. Goodbye, everyone. Like, I don't want to do that, but like, I'll point to a good friend of mine, Hollywood reporter, writer and critic Richard Newby, who's been very vocal as a Black American. Like, we have to rally around Biden, because if Project 2025 happens, X, Y, and Z. I get that. My nephews are Black. Like, I understand it 100%. And then, of course, our queer and trans friends, and just like the whole spectrum of people that will be victimized. And the question is, ultimately, is sticking with Joe going to protect them? And then the other point is, can Joe protect them at all? And we have to understand fundamentally that comes that both comes from the place of wanting to protect and fight them. And I think that's the thing, is that like the left is always trying to out left each other. I consider myself to be more left than a lot of friends. I'm not as left as you know, Jared in the comments, who wants to like grab a broadsword and start the King's Justice. But like, it's like at the same time, it's like you know, that's I was talking with my longtime friend Gabe, who's a teacher, and we've been friends since we were 14. And he was like, you know, we were talking just about how like annoying sometimes, like what I think I explained to you the phrase tanky, like super, super like annoying left people like on Twitter. And it's like, guys, yeah, I too would love like this, you know, Star Trek. Like, yeah, I want no money. Like, yeah, it's awesome. But like, we gotta fight here in 2024. And yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I get you.
Nobody loves Joe Biden. Like I don't think I know a single person that like loves Joe Biden. But like
no, but I
also
say
hate fascists.
Yeah, there's some big successes in this administration that I think should be highlighted more in some conversations. And I'm big on him taking on corporations, unlike any administration has done since prior to Reagan. But I feel you, and I hear you, and that's the thing too. It's like we all got to be reminded of our perspectives and then the other perspectives. You know, I'm making jokes about Acolyte, and I know we said we're going to talk about Star Wars, but I didn't like where a lot of the conversation went after the end of the show. But there's some folks, friends of mine, Jen Landa comes to mind, Molly Damon, who've made some great points of that. Are of another experience I have to pull in and make sure I'm aware of, and you've helped me pull some in, and
I love their thoughts. Again, we're not doing the Star Wars conversation, but like
we're not
because of what their thoughts were. It was like
I'm still grumpy.
You're still grumpy. You know, Skeleton Crew's coming, man. But it's like the idea of like, I love what both Jen and Molly said about it. Not even because of the Star Wars, but because of art reflecting experience, and what they both said boiled down from my interpretation to, we both know that it's not endorsing this, but to see a complexity added to a journey we've seen. We've seen Vader and Kylo Ren and Iskat and Dooku and all these people fall differently. Now we've seen this kind of fall, and it's very modern and blah, blah, blah. So I think that same thought process of like, let's talk about complexities, and like, we're like for you and Joseph and Jennifer to all agree, like, bad choice. But for the different reactions about bad choice speaks to how humans interpret information. And so when you move that over here into politics, it's like, we all agree, bad outcome, potentially. Let's stop it. But how is also a thing that Jedi argue about. They're not a monolith. That's why way seekers in the Lost 20 exist. Anyway, listen to Force Center. But we're
listen to Octo Radio, or just follow Alden's tweets.
It's true.
No, I feel you, and I know we were talking long, and we just kind of almost at this point talking in circles to make sure we love each other, and I love you, man. And
no, I don't even think it's like, I never worry about you and I worry more about, are we gonna hit end stream, and then I'm like, fuck, was that clear enough? That's a thought I have all the time.
No, clarity is what I want, and I think at least for me, I think we've hit some here today.
I would vote for you.
I'd be a good politician. Because I'm liked by a lot of different people, and I'm just lazy.
Maybe like a Burbank City Council run.
No, my cousin runs. His girlfriend is a vice mayor of Burbank. He runs Laura Friedman's case. He's a political campaign organizer in high demand, and I think soon he'll be in Washington. So
okay,
let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, Knapsack Diaz ticket. I'm Puerto Rican. That gives us something.
We'll turn Puerto Rico to a state. Get the vote. Let's do it.
They don't want it. They don't want that because they don't realize that's a whole other thing. They don't want Puerto Rico to be a state, not for any of the reasons they claim, but because they know that it would be purple leaning blue, and how dangerous that could potentially be. But anyway,
we solved all the problems as we did. No, great stuff, man. Well, I think one of my favorite conversations with you.
Absolutely.
There's Jared taking. Yeah, I mean, look, I'll grab my sword to fight Jared on his Yoda takes. That's all I'll say. Me and Scrimshaw will challenge him to a Yoda duel.
So bad. Jerry said your mom sounds exactly like my mom. Look, moms come up a lot on Anytime. This will be my last point. Your mom, my mom are referenced almost every episode because we're sons that have good speaking dynamics. Like, we are people that talk to our mom. Some people don't, and some people can't. And they come up a lot. But like, it's just so funny how they become like these off-screen supporting characters. But like, by all accounts, like, your mom is like a very relaxed, very easy. It's just your growing up experience can't help but inform the.
She grew up in the 50s, married a man who was an immigrant from a country that tossed his grandparents out. So when she says, I don't like communism and socialism, I know where it comes from. It's just hard to 7 decades in unplug some of those wires.
Yeah. Oh, look who decides to show up. Great conversation today, fellas.
I love Mr. Kumar. He and I are going to, one of these days, have lunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
When one of you decides to drive an hour. Anyway.
Yeah. All
right,
we're
folks.
out. We're out. I will do the shilling thing here, Alden.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're
Plug
local,
away.
if you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, great show. This is a very fun show we do every year. This lineup this year is great. Malcolm Barrett. A lot of you know Malcolm Barrett. Mark Ellis headlining. Nick Scarpino, Joe Starr, me, Kyle Lewis, who's very funny from New York, and who knows will show up. It's always an ever-changing lineup. Get tickets at markellis.live. If you're in San Diego for Comic-Con, I'll just be down there for the show, and one day I'll be around Friday, but not going to the actual con, but hope to see some of you there. So there you go. That's the business, Alden. Next week, if you want to bring in your British correspondents or bring in that Kumar cat, I don't care. You got the keys to the castle. I'll be hungover in San Diego.
Hell yeah, man. You'll be out there watching trailers. I mean, maybe Harrison Ford will be there and then for Captain America, and then you can hang out with him. That'd be great. In terms of what's going on my end, Casually Talk continues. We have 3 more episodes of the House of the Dragon season, and that is live Sunday nights at 10:30 Eastern. It's been great to get those watch hours back up. But things have been going really well with those conversations. Nikki's been on. We've had Andres Cabrera returning and has been on several times. Andy has been essential. Andy's become one of our key people from Genders, Queers, Buccaneers, and Force Friends Rewatch. Love them. We've been having great conversations there. More people will be popping in. We'll do the rest of the season again.
And I'm stopping short of committing to it, but I'm going to make sure I'm available for the finale discussion.
Yeah, the finale or the season wrap up. Either way.
Yeah, the season's been,
Ken.
Do you hear that, everybody? Alden doesn't want me on the finale wrap up. He wants me on the season wrap up.
I just want as many Ken thoughts as I can.
All right.
But yeah, Ken will be back. He doesn't hate Game of Thrones, and also he doesn't hate any of you.
Loving this season. I love this season. House of
Ken loves this. Ken and Grace are crying watching this season.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
you know why? Because I have no memory of Fire Blood. It's one of my I love Fire and Blood. I have no memory of what's next. I literally don't know. I literally when that thing with Rainey's, I was like, oh god, I totally forgot that.
Yeah. So it's all that. Casually Talk, and then Octo Radio is coming back. There's a couple episodes recorded after about a couple months off while we were, doing other life stuff. So look for that at that Alden Diaz, at Ken Knapsack, at Anytime on Air. We love you guys.
Yeah. See you, friends.
Have a less stressful week.
Yeah. Talk nice to the people you love, and we'll get through it all. Bye-bye.
Bye.